Okay, perfect. So I think this is maybe class 18, Shi'ur High, I think. Okay, so let's study. We're in the middle of the second sugya, and before we go into the continuation of the second sugya, which is what we're going to do today, and then we're going to also do the third sugya, maybe part of the fourth sugya, because it's very short. The sugya number 3 is very short. What I want to do is I just want to one more time give you now the full, actually, for the first time, give you the full surata dishmata of the second sugya. So if you open up with the Gemara, let's do this together. Daf Gimel, Amud Aleph. On the bottom of the page, we have the Gemara. Right? There's more Gemarayot. Don't share. So open up together, right? Yeah. All right. So this is a sugya mechumeshet. As I said, it is a 5-part sugya. The number 5 repeats itself over and over again in the sugya. So you see that was the framework that the Hachamim chose as the framework for the sugya, and we'll see it now. So we start on Daf Gimel Amud Aleph. On the bottom of the page, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 lines from the bottom of the page. Amar Rav Shemuel bar Yitzchak, Amarav. That was a statement of Rav Shemuel bar Yitzchak, where he limits the applicability of the rule stated in the Mishnah. The rule stated in the Mishnah was that Betula Nised Le'om Revi'im. And comes Rav Shemuel bar Yitzchak in the name of Rav, and he limits the applicability of that rule to places where we have Takanat Ezra. Takanat Ezra said that you have the Bet Din on Monday and on Thursday. So if you live in a place where we follow Takanat Ezra, so that the Bet Din sits on Thursday, we would make the wedding on Wednesday, right? But if it's in another place, call them Takanat Ezra, no, and also Ha'idana. Also today, if it's called Takanat Ezra, and I'm sorry, Ha'idanat, there's a place that is like called Takanat Ezra, meaning where they don't sit on Thursday, then no, we wouldn't tell them to get married on Wednesday, right? So that's the first part, and it's a type of petiha. It introduces the sugya, and there was 2 questions in this first part, right? The first question was, call them Takanat Ezra, Maide Hava Hava. That was the first question. And the second question was, Hava Einan Shakedu. That was it. And then finally, the third question, which leads us directly into the second part of the sugya, is Mai Shakedu. What is this idea of Shakedu that the Hachamim were insistent that when the woman gets married, the proper seudah is made for her, that we don't just treat Benot Israel in a disrespectful fashion, but on the contrary, the wedding meal has to be a beautiful meal. So that's my shakedu. That was the third question. And the third question takes us into Halek Sheni, Halek Bet. Halek Bet introduces the Baraita, which contains the law of shakedu. So that's now Gimel Amud Bet on the top of the page. My shakedu. You see that? You have the place? My shakedu, Gimel Amud Bet on the top of the page. So this introduces us to the first Baraita, and if you look at this Baraita, it has exactly 5 parts. So again, this is Sugya Mechumeshet, so it's not surprising that you will have the number 5 repeating itself over and over again. There are 5 separate laws in this Baraita. All right, so this is, again, we are in the second part, Halek Bet, and the second part itself has 3 subparts. The first subpart is the Baraita. And as we said, the Baraita has 5 laws. Okay. The second subpart of this part B, let's call it, is also 5 comments on what did the Baraita mean when it brought the law of sakana. It said that there's a sakana, there's a danger. What exactly was the danger? So there are 5 notes on the question of danger. What did it mean, danger? Okay, so this is the second subpart of part B, right? What is the danger? And the fifth note was a direct introduction to. I'm sorry. No. Mechila, I misspoke. That's it. Okay. So five notes on the question of danger. All right. Then we have the third subpart of part B. The third subpart of part B is 5 notes on the law of honest. The Baraita wrote the law of honest, and the law of honest. What do they mean by honest? The starting point is it's referring to a situation where the army was entering the city, and because the army is entering the city, they're going to take the wedding food, they're going to confiscate all the food, and they're going to confiscate the food. How can you possibly have the wedding in a situation where they confiscate the food? So we shouldn't be insistent on making them get married on Wednesday. If that's the day where the general is going to enter, or maybe Tuesday, they're going to have a team that enters before the general. So that was the law of honest. And again, there was 5 comments in this third subpart. 5 comments on the law of honest. The last comment was, we're going to now offer a different alternative explanation to honest. And this different alternative explanation to honest will be based on part 3. Part 3 is now going to introduce the second major baraita. Do you remember, either of you, anybody sitting here, do you remember what the new law or the new explanation for honest was? What was the basis for the honest? You remember what the honest was about? The first was the honest of the army coming into the city, but then we had another type of honest.
Avelut.
Avelut, Hazaku Baruch, thank you, Avelut. Okay, so part 3, major part, let's call it major part. Major part 3 introduces the Baraita, which starts on the bottom of Daf Gimel Amud Bet, right? And it says 4 lines from the bottom of the page. 1, 2, 3, 4. Last word of the line. Kid Tanya. Right? Kid Tanya. This is the second Baraita, and it's the famous Baraita that we've been studying. Okay. This Baraita, so this is the third major subpart, is now going to introduce a new idea of honest. This major part 3 has 2 subparts. The first one is the Baraita itself, which has 5 laws in it, right? You see the number 5 again? And the second subpart of this major part 3 is going to be 5 comments on what does it mean tebachol tabua. Okay, so that's the entire major part 3. Any questions until now? Everybody's good?
I just have one comment.
Yes, please.
So this is interesting. The 2 versions of honest both ignore what the Talmud Yerushalmi says, which is about astrological inappropriate date. And the Yerushalmi Emoraim are earlier, and here we have later people, and they're obviously ignoring it and trying to drive the discussion away from that.
Yeah. There's no question that the discussion in this sugya is veering away from the approach of the Yerushalmi. But you're going to see in the next sugya number 3, just to kind of keep things honest, let's say, it gives us the entire perspective of the Yerushalmi, and again, we would veer away from that, but we wouldn't be dishonest. We wouldn't ignore it. So ignoring it would almost verge on dishonesty. So that's why we have sugya number 3, and that's why it's a very short sugya. The whole sugya is very short, and so to just kind of introduce Tani Bar Kapara in the Babli. So yes, I agree with what you just said. I think that's a very good point. Okay, so again, this was major part 3. Major part 3 brought the Baraita of Avelut, that's what the honest is, right? The honest is Avelut. They were about to get married. The father of the groom died. The mother of the bride died. They don't know what to do. That's the honest. Okay, in this case, we'll let you. You don't have to do the wedding on Wednesday, like we said normally. Obviously, here we're gonna extenuating circumstance. Okay. And we said that this major part 3 has 2 subparts, the Baraita, which has 5 laws, again the number 5, and then the second subpart, which is notes on the law of Tevachot Tavuach. Five notes on Tevachot Tavuach. Isn't that lovely? How perfectly structured the sugya is. The fifth note introduces the third beraita, Tanya Kevate Derapista. So you see how the pattern is kind of like repeating itself? Always the last note of the previous part. It's a direct interlude into the new part. So we have Tanya Kevate Derapista, and now we have the fourth major part of the sugya. The fourth major part of the sugya is the beraita, Tanya Kevate Derapista, Daf Daled Amud Aleph. And here, this beraita has 7 laws. And you're going to see that now the number 7 becomes the number that's used by the yeshiva to organize the ideas, right? So I suspect that because the first beraita had 5 laws, and then the second beraita had 5 laws, so that's why the number 5 became predominant. But now because this beraita, this is the third beraita, has 7 laws, so now the number 7 is going to become a significant in formulating or structuring the ideas. But let's look at it. So now we have this fourth major part, which brings the third beraita. This third beraita has 7 laws. And there is something that I didn't mention. If you go back to major part 3, there's a note on the beraita before the Gemara discusses it. There's V'davka aviv shel hatano ima shel kala. You have that note. Here you have a similar note. Tanya Kevate Rabbi Yochanan. Almost a kind of a parallel interjection. Okay. Okay. But then we have so we have the second subpart of major part 4 is the derasha of Rav Yosef, and 7 questions on the derasha of Rav Yosef, exactly 7 questions. Again, the number 7 reflecting the number of laws in the beraita that we're analyzing, but because we're in a sugya mechumeshet, you're also going to have 5 mikorot in this subpart 2, right? So subpart 2 of major part 4 has 7 questions, because of the 7 laws in the beraita, and 5 mekorot, and 5 sources, because this is sugya mechumeshet. So again, we don't have to repeat this. I will make some notes in a moment, but right now I'm just going to go through the structure of the sugya, and then we'll go backwards and look at some points that I wanted to add. Okay? All right. So we have this again. The major part 4 has 3 subparts. The first one is the beraita. The second one is the derasha of Rav Yosef with the 7 questions and 5 sources. And now you have the third subpart, which is the approach of Rav Asher. I have to say some things about the approach of Rav Asher. And here in the approach of Rav Asher, you're going to see exactly 5 statements. And again, the 5 statements is because this is a sugya mechumeshet. So we have exactly 5 ma'amarot, and you're going to see that it's almost contrived. 2 of these statements were almost redundant. You didn't really need to say those 2 statements, but they added it in, I suspect, to keep the number 5 as the framework, the major framework for the sugya. Okay? And again, this is all in the notes. You can see it all in the notes. It's very clear. I spent a lot of time on this. I got to tell you, it's not easy, breaking up the sugya and all this stuff. But I think it was worth. The effort. Okay, and now we have the 5th and final major part of the sugya, which deals with the law of why did the beraita say you don't get married on Saturday night? What was the purpose of that, right? So here you're going to have the structure will be. Let me see. I kind of lost it. Oh, okay. So here, major part 5. Major part 5 will have 3. I see. I'm looking at my notes. I didn't do this well. But major part 5 will have 3 subparts. Okay? In the first subpart, we will bring an explanation for why we don't do Nisuim Erev Shabbat. That's the first thing. Then, we will bring an explanation for why we don't do Nisuim Motza'ei Shabbat. That's the second thing. And then, finally, we will bring an alternative explanation for why we don't do a Nisuim Erev Shabbat. So you're going to see that, and I have to work, I see that I'm looking at my notes, and I didn't complete this, but those are the three subparts of this major part 5. And what's notable is that if you look at the Amal Yavayeh, the Hishbonot Shel Mitzvah Mi Asire, and the answer is obvious, Hishbonot Shel Mitzvah is not Asur on Shabbat, they bring exactly 7 sources. They bring exactly 7 sources to support the idea that Hishbonot Shel Mitzvah is not Asire. Okay? So we'll look at that. We'll look at that later, and then maybe later today or tomorrow, Beli Neder, I will finish this Google document and finish that 5th major subpart. But I think you see the structure. Everything is clear now. Okay. So you want to start this? Let's start in the Sukkah. I want to make a few points on what we already studied, and then we'll go forward to the new parts. All right. And of course, everything we're studying is Le'inu Nishmat Morenu B'Rabbeinu Va'ateret Roshenu Rabbi Yosef Ben Ora Hareni Kaparat Mishkavo. All right. All right. So let me see. Let's go to Daf Daled Amud Bet. All right, Daf Daled Amud Bet. All right. Where were we? Yeah, we brought here a baraita in the middle. Confirm to me that you can find the place, and I will, or I will help you. Daf Daled Amud Bet. Vehatanya. It's about 1/3 of the way down. Vehatanya, middle word in the line. Mishemet Hamib or Hamoto. Yeah, I'll help you. You got it?
Yes. Got it.
Okay, there's a few points. We studied this last time. I just want to make a few points here that I failed to say last time. Okay, so Mishemet Hamib or Hamoto. Actually, Shlomo wanted to read that. Tanya.
תניא, מי שמת חמיו וחמותו אינו יכול לקוף את אשתו להיות כוחלת ולהיות פוסקת אלא פוקפת.
Okay, so a person his mother-in-law died, his father-in-law died. He can't force his wife to braid her hair or to כוחלת, to put eye mascara.
אלא כופה מיתתו ונוהג עמה אבלות.
Okay, כופה מיתתו ונוהג עמה אבלות. That's a basic law. The basic law is that when a person's spouse is in mourning, then that individual has to noheg avelut befaneha, has to make avelut befaneha. And that's why it says noheg imma. What does it mean noheg imma avelut? So the Gemara later on is going to say in the presence of the spouse, meaning if Reuven is married to Rachel and Rachel's father dies, Reuven, when he's in the presence of Rachel, he has to act like he's an Avel. But if he's not in the presence of Rachel, he doesn't have to act like he's an Avel. Now, one of the things that we discussed last time was how today we don't practice this law, meaning if a person loses his in-laws and that person's husband or wife is in mourning, we don't require that individual himself to act in mourning in the presence of his, meaning he'll wash his face, he'll, I don't know, comb his hair, or if it's a wife, she can put on makeup, and so on. We don't force them to act with avilut. Now, why is that? Because Dina Talmud is clear. Dina Talmud is nohegim ma avilut, right? And it's very clear in the sugya. There's not much of a question, right? So I want to explain this. Actually, the laws of makeup, we do have avilut. Today we do mehila. I misspoke. Today, the practice is that with respect to the laws of makeup, they do practice the laws of avilut. But okay, let me explain the idea. There's a law that misha mohel al kevodo machol. A person is allowed to be mohel on his kavod. Okay. Now, there's a few levels to this. So, for example, a hacham, it's up to the hacham's discretion. Let's say somebody doesn't stand up for the hacham. The hacham walks them to synagogue and they don't stand up. So, Rav shemachal al kevodo machol. He can be mohel. He doesn't have to be mohel. He can be makpid also. It's his right to be makpid. Then Rav Shemachal al Bizyono and Bizyono Machul. If somebody b'minan is mebazeh Tara, it's not Machul. Okay? And even if the Chacham doesn't say anything, I saw things where there was Bizayon of a Chacham and didn't always end well. How about we put it like that? Because Bizyono is not Machul. It's not meaning, even if the Chacham himself would be Mochel, that person, that would be saying, a Mochel, you don't have the authority to be Mochel. And Bizyono Machul. You understand the idea? It's a very important idea to understand. So it's, let's say, I'm not saying me or whatever, but let's say there's a Chacham, and somebody is disrespectful to the Chacham, makes a stupid comment in his Shi'ur or something, like almost like, not worthy of a discussion. So the Chacham in his mind is going to be, okay, Na'im Alichot, whatever, not Makbid, but end is, Machul. If the guy was Mebazeh the Chacham, then the Kerape Shemaya, it's not Machul, doesn't matter. He says, okay, that's a beautiful thing. Before we go to see, we say we forgive everybody, but if it's a Chacham, he does not have the authority to be Mochel on his Bizayon. Now here, we have a situation where the reason that a spouse has to act with Avelut, even though they're not the subject of Avelut, their spouses, it's a question of Kavod. Now, since today people are Mohalim on the Kavod, this is the theory, this is the legal theory for why today, since there's Mechila on the Kavod, so we say, okay, you don't have to act with Avelut. This is the explanation given by the Rishonim, and I didn't explain it last time, but I think it makes sense. And I know that Alav Shalom, Chacham Matub Abadi had a very unusual Pesach. I like reading the Pesakim of Chacham Matub Abadi because he wasn't afraid, and it's very enjoyable to read Pesakim of people that are not afraid. Today there's like this particular issue. Many rabbis are afraid of their own shadow. They're certainly afraid of other rabbis' shadows, and there's this tendency to, you have to virtue signal because you don't want people to attack you, and even if you don't buy into it, it's like, imagine I introduce you as, yes, my pronouns are he and him, or they and them, I don't know, whatever pronouns this. Now I don't believe in introducing you with pronouns, but I'll put it at the bottom of my email because it might go to people who they believe in that, and you're kofen in this idea that you, even though you have a mustache and a beard and you're pretty big and strong and muscular, are you kofen in the idea that you might be a woman and that maybe I'll call you har? So I have to put he and him to show that, no, I'm not kofer in that, has v'shalom. So it's a problem among the rabbis. Rabbis today, many of them are just afraid of their own shadow. So it comes out. I heard of this absurdity. A well-known yeshiva in the community. Actually, it's not Ashon Hara. Right? This is what they believe in. YDE, Rabbi Yedid. So they had a yeshiva, and apparently they had a trip in Israel. And it seems that one of the Talmidim, his mom wanted to give him a package. I think he forgot his tefillin. I don't know what. I think it was like tefillin. I don't remember what the package was, but they were in a hotel, and nobody could be exposed to a woman, right? So she had to meet someplace in some other location. They had to meet in somewhere far away where chas v'shalom nobody would see the woman, because if they see the woman, that would be a problem. So it's a type of it's not just a pathology. It's not just a mental pathology. Obviously, we're dealing with deranged individuals, but there's also an element here of virtue signaling. I'm so religious that when this guy's mom needed to give him something, she couldn't come anywhere near the hotel because chas v'shalom, one of the other boys might have seen this, and that would have been a problem. You understand? So it's a type of sickness. So getting back to Chacham Matlub, what I like about Chacham Matlub is he wasn't afraid to talk about halakha. I know that there was once a question about somebody taking a subway. I think it was Yom Tov. So they used to have tokens back then. It wasn't like money. It was like a token that you put in. And he said, yeah, it's mutar. What's the issue? I'm not making Pesach. I'm afraid of my shadow. But Chacham Matlub, it's mutar. What's the issue? Is that there's always room to carry. There's no the goy is moving the subway just like that. That's the Pesach he made. Okay, that's a Pesakim, okay? So I love reading his Pesakim. So one of his Pesakim was, and it was unusual. I don't make Pesak like that. I'm not saying I make Pesak like this, but I respect his courage, and maybe he was right. Maybe I'm wrong and he's right. But he made a Pesak that since the question of shaving, not shaving, let's say his son doesn't shave, let's say his father passed away, so he won't shave for 30 days. Okay, or Karo, doesn't matter, doesn't have to be father. So he doesn't shave. So the theory of Hakam Matlub was, since not shaving, not getting a haircut is a question of kavod, so if a person wants to be mochel on the kavod, if a father wants to be mochel on the kavod and tell, for example, the son, you can shave, the son can shave, because mahal al kavodo, a very interesting law, no? I heard, and I don't know if this is correct, that he actually made Pesach like that for his own son. I don't know if that's correct. I believe I heard something like that once. Hakam Aaron, did you hear anything like that, or you're not familiar with that story?
I heard that, but it's not 100%.
Okay. But the Pesach of Hakam Matlub was like that. It may be not in regards to his own son, but the Pesach was like that now. So then the question becomes, well, if you can shave during the 30 days, according to Hakam Matlub, again, I'm saying, according to Hakam Matlub, so why can't you shave during the 7 days? So his Pesach was that you can't do something that would be outrageous in the eyes of the community. Meaning you also have to be sensitive to the feelings of the people in the community. So it's not a question, you can't be mohel in that regard, right? There's a level of where it almost becomes embarrassing, right? I'm sharing with you as Pesach, not because I think we should do this, and I'm not in any way comparing myself to Hakam Matlub. I'm sharing with you Pesach because it's very interesting to understand the idea of why today husband is not lo noheg imma avelut for his wife, and why a wife lo noheget immo avelut for the husband, right? So that's the very important point to understand what's happening. Yeah. All right, let's continue. All right, let's look now at Rav Asher. Okay, so what Rav Asher Amar. If you go a little down in the page, you see Rav Asher? The last two words of the line. Yes, Rav Asher Amar?
Yeah.
Okay, I can read it. Rav Asher Amar. מי כמדמת. Actually, I think it's כמדמית. Hakam Aaron, would you read it?
Yeah, that's how I read it, exactly.
כמדמית, right? Yeah, okay. מי כמדמית. So he offered a completely different explanation of the problem and the apparent question of whether avelut is hamil aleh, whether nida hamil aleh, right? So he offered a completely different explanation. In fact, it says, you're bringing me the Baraita, which deals with the situation of avelut in an unusual circumstance, namely, we suspend the avelut, so to speak, and we let them get married, right? And you're going to compare that situation to a regular situation of a regular avel. Well, you can't compare those two situations, namely, avelut de alma, hamir. It's hamur. Of course, the guy's not going to violate. The guy just lost. I don't know who he lost. He lost his parents, and he's going to be with his wife. Has v'shalom to even speak like that. Aveluta de alma hamir v'la tel zilzule ba. It's zilzule ba. I don't know if I corrected it last time. It's not zilzule be. It's zilzule ba. Read it. Ba. Okay. So in that case, we don't need extra shemira. In that case, we don't need to have shomerim. Because bevadaut, he's not going to be violated on avelut, of course. But aveluta de'acha, kevan de'akilu rabbanan. I don't think so. No. Kevan de'akilu rabbanan.
Okay. Kevan de'akilu rabbanan.
Atel zuzule ba. Okay. But in the case here where we said, what happened? Met aviv shel chatan, met ha'ima shel kala, and we suspended the avelut, maybe because we made this kula. We're going to see in a moment what the kula is. Maybe because we were already mekilim, so there would be a possibility that he would be more inclined to violate the avelut. Now, one of the important things. Okay, so first of all, the Shita Mekubeset asks a question here. The question that he asks is it the answer of Rav Asher obvious? Right? Again, we started out with this discussion around the Derasha of Rabbi Yosef Barabah, and then we began to wonder what's more hamura, veluta hamilale or nida hamilale. Okay, and we tried to say that there's a distinction between his avelut and her avelut. Okay, comes Rav Asher and he gives an obvious answer. The obvious answer is, yeah, in the case of the met aviv shel hatan, met ima shel kala, in that case, yes, it's an unusual situation. We put shomerim. Normally, he's not going to be mekel. But in that case, he's going to be mekel. Okay. Isn't the answer obvious? Shita Mekubeset points this out. And my father gives the best answer, I think. Allah shalom. My father points out that Rav Asher was a contemporary of this Rav Yosef. We're dealing with Rav Yosef, the son of Rava. He was a contemporary of Rav Asher. So you're acting like, Rav Yosef Barava said something, 500 years ago, and now comes Rav Asher and suddenly discovers America. And how could it be that nobody discovered America till now? My father points out that they were contemporaries. So while it's true that Rav Asher revisited the issue in the yeshiva, but it's not like there was 100 years that passed and nobody thought of this, right? The entire discussion takes place in the days of Rav Asher. The Derasha of Rav Yosef Barabah takes place in the days of Rav Asher. Obviously, the statement of Rav Asher is a contemporary statement, so that answers the point of the Shita Mekubeset. Okay, I wanted to point that out. That's an important point to understand the sugya. All right, the history.
That's why it says Rav Asher Amar.
Yeah.
We can't ignore that, right?
Yes, that's right. He's disagreeing. Okay. Now, there's another point here. What is Rav Asher saying? He's saying, since we made a kula, we said that met aviv shel hatan, we're mekilim. The kula is whatever, that they suspend the avelut. So we're saying, since we made a kula, we have to make a humrah. That's an important point that my father used to talk about a lot. It's the idea of compensation in rabbinics. When the Chachamim make a leniency, they balance out the leniency with the Humrah. And I see this in many, many cases. I've seen this in many situations. The Chachamim are mekilim on one side, and the Mahmirim on the other side. And this is a very good example. You see that Rav Asher is talking about this. He's saying, since we made a kula, and we're going to see exactly what the kula was, we're going to define the kula very clearly, right? Then we have to make a Humrah. Right? You can't just make a kula and walk away. Because the minute you make a kula in the mind of the people, they're going to now start being, not taking the law seriously. Right? So that's a very important point of Rav Asher. He says, Avelut e'acha kevan de'akilu barabanan atel zalzule ba. And therefore we have to be mahmirim. Whereas a normal avelut, where we don't have this kula, we don't have to be mahmirim. Okay? You understand the idea?
Yeah.
I'll read it. Shlomo, my kula.
My
kula. You understand? Now, very intelligent question. When you say there's a kula, you have to be very precise. What specific kula are we talking about? Ilema.
דקנצנה בועל בעילת מצווה ופורש התם משום דלה
חל עליו אבלותה. Okay, stop. This is a very important point. One of the machlokot between Harambam on the one side and the Tosafot, Ramban on the other side, is regarding whether the onen is obligated in laws of avelut. And according to Ramban and the Tosafot, the answer is yes. There are laws of avelut that the onen must do, meaning the avelut technically starts already then. Shulchan Aruch, he brings rachisa, he says washing. Right? He brings rachisa. Harambam doesn't bring anything. I mean, there's laws of aninut, which means eno ochel basar, eno shote yain. Fair enough, that's laws of aninut. right? It's not laws of abelut, right? So here we see clearly, the Gemara is saying explicitly, there's no other way to interpret this, right? That there is no abelut until after, well, either setimat golal or petach habayit, right? Meaning, the law is clearly, Dina Talmud is clearly like a Rambam, right? Right? So the Be'ilah, in other words, according to this, it comes out that if Onan is with his wife, I'm not saying we practice that, but I want to understand the theory of the law. There's no Isur. It's not a Kula. Explicitly. I'm going to read it again. My Kula. Tell me what the leniency is. Maybe you're going to say the leniency is that we let him be with his wife before the burial. Hatam. Yeah, by the way, I failed to say the original Gilisa was Po'el Be'ilat Misva Uporesh, and this change is for the second Baraita and the third Baraita. I failed to bring this. The original Gilisa was מכניסין את המת לחדר ואת החתן ואת הכלה לחופה ובועל בעילת מצווה ופורש וקובר את מתו. וקובר את מתו. It was explicit. You understand? So קובר את מתו was part of the baraita. So here I would say similarly ilema I'm sorry. Yeah. Right, yeah, right. Right? So we allow, is that a kula? Is it a kula that we allowed him to be with his wife before he buried the manoach or the right? Hatam or manocha. Hatam mishum delachan alav aveluta. There's not a kula. The avelut didn't start yet, so it's not a kula. You see, so it's explicitly again. It's a little difficult for Shitat Tosafot and the Rambam, and who say that the Avelut starts. But okay, I'm just bringing this to your attention because we're studying the Talmud, and I want you to know the Dina Talmud, but I also want you to be familiar with some of the other, opinions, and in this case, there's an important machloket between Rambam and some of the other poskim.
So now it makes more sense, the two interpolated Tanaim, because it says Vekover Meto. Fine.
Yep.
Now you want to say, and even if that's wrong, it's too late. Even according to the Eliezer, Shelo Yesem Petach Beto, it's still, but he's still Nichnas Lachupa Uboel. He still didn't leave the house.
Yeah.
So there's no way you could say the Avedut should start, even to the most strict opinion of the Eliezer, which is not the halacha as we all know.
Yes, that's a great point, by the way. That's an excellent point. I like that. So even alibad Rabbi Eliezer, there's no avilut. Wow. All right. Now, I just want to explain that. Let me explain Yisatem Golal, and then I'm going to explain Yesem Petach Beto. So Yisatem Golal. So there's okay. So Rashi says that that's covering kisui. I believe it says kisui aron hamet. If I don't, let me just see. Hold on one second. Give me a moment. Achi Yisatem Golal. I believe here or somewhere else. He says kisui aron hamet, but I don't see it here. So maybe it's somewhere else. Yes. The last line in the Rashi, Ze kisui, mamash the last line, look at Rashi there. Ze kisui shel aron hamet. Rashi says, what does it mean, Yisatem Golal? This refers to covering the coffin, right? That's what, that's how Rashi explains it. Rabbeinu Tam, I'm sorry? Oh, Rabbeinu Tam says, no, if you look at Rabbeinu Tam in the Tosafot, it's look at the last line of the Tosafot. I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It says there at the beginning of the line, Rabbeinu Tam mefaresh de golal hayno maseva. It's referring to like to the tombstone. Shehi evin gadolal, because the tombstone was like a large stone. Okay. All right. Let me explain to you. And today is like a kind of a free day, so I can maybe bring to you Rambam. Give me a moment. Let me get to Rambam.
So neither of those explanations fits the Lashon, though. It would be smarter to say, we have a practice which everybody's familiar with, so I could translate to our practice. But what the Talmud is actually saying is an ancient way of burying in caves, like Harambam describes, and it's not relevant to us. So let's call it, he's trying to say, so when do we start the Avilud? When we cover the okay, fine. You could say that, but don't mislead the public as to what the actual Lashon originally means.
Right. And the original Lashon, as long as we begun the discussion, Golal milashon liglol, to roll, because they would actually, so just to your point, they would have like a family cave, and the cave would have niches inside, and they would put the body inside the niche, right? I don't think they had like a coffin or anything. I believe that they would just put the body straight into the niche.
Yes, no coffin.
Right. And then they would, now the only question I have is as follows. When it says Achi Satema Golal, was it referring specifically to the niche, that they would roll a stone to seal that niche? Or Achi Satema Golal, does it mean to seal the cave where the niche is in? That's the only safek I have. But the point is that this is the way it was done. It was done, my father in his class, he seemed to indicate, Alav Shalom, that it was rolling the stone to seal the cave. That's what it seems to be. But I believe Mechila, again, he may have misspoken. I think that's what I remember him saying, but I believe it's the niche. I'll tell you why in a moment. But the point is, and today's contemporary situation where we don't have caves, that it would be like Rashi says, putting the soil, no problem. But it's important to understand, it's important to understand the real meaning of what happened. Now, this is why also the Gemara brings the law, and Abraham brings the law of Kibbutz Asamot. So what would happen is, I don't know how many months later, but some time would pass.
12 months, I think.
12 months?
That's where the Kabbalah got the notion that the neshama is like in limbo for 12 months. Some people say it's in Gehinnom, and then you only say Kaddish for 11, Shevet is not in Gehinnom, all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
They're projecting this law onto some metaphysical existence of the Med.
Right. So I think it was 12 months. So what they would do is, after 12 months, they would open up the cave, go in, and they would collect the bones, and then they would put it like in a clay vessel. Now, that's the way you're going to is a Sefer Torah, you're going to is a Sefer Torah in a clay vessel. Now, the other question I have is, I believe they would put the clay vessel back in the niche. That's what I believe. Again, I'm not an expert in this matter, but I think once they would put the atzamot in the clay vessel, that's it. They would, the day of kibbutz atzamot is considered like a day of avelut for the person, understandably so. And also you see here, in this type of burial and this type of ritual, you see that it's not the body that, it's not the physical body, that's not the essence of one's existence, and I know people always like to go to the kevarot, and okay, fair enough, and I understand that, I'm not, but we that's it. You take the atzamot, you put them in a clay vessel, and you leave. That's why also Harambam says Pesach Halacha that there is no maseva. The maseva is let me just mute one of these things here. Let me see how I do it. I know I do this. Okay, let me do this. Mute. How do I mute this? I know there's a way to do this. Hanan. Let me see if I can. Hanan, can you? Okay, thank you. Perfect. All right, great. Okay, it's done. He's muted. All right. Let me get Harambam. Just Chotumat Hamet. I think this would be useful. Just give me a moment, please. Thank you. Wow, just Sadiq. All right, Chotumat Hamet, Perek Bet, Halakha Tetvav. Hold on 1 second. Let me see. Yeah. It's the wrong thing. Yeah. There should be something here. Yeah, okay, yeah. Good. Hakever. So Perek Bet, Halakha Tetvav. הקבר, כל זמן שהטומאה בתוכו. מטמא במגע ובאוהל. כמת. דין תורה. So, the tumat kever is equal to the tum'ah of the met. שנאמר, או באמת, או בעצם אדם, או בקבר. So you see that the kaver, which is the place where the met is buried, is equal to the met himself. Okay. But then he says as follows. So the kever is the ground where the person is buried, right? או באמת, או בעצם אדם או בקבר, אחד הנוגע בגגו של קבר, או הנוגע בחותלו, והוא שיהיה בנוי וסתום, ואחר כך יהיה כולו מטמא במגע ובאוהל. That's interesting. So you bury the individual. Let's say, imagine like there's a mound in the ground, just to understand this law. So then you put the body, let's say you excavate, you put a place for the body, and then you put the body in the mound, and then you cover it. Similar to Rashi, let's say, right? So if you touch the gag, or you touch the side, the top of the mound, or you touch the side of the mound, that's called a kever. Now a kever is something that's completely filled up with soil. You understand the idea of kever? So, and that kever, which is completely filled up with soil, has walls, because I described it as a mound, and therefore if you touch it from the side, or you touch it from on top, or you put an ohel, right? Or your ma'ahil, then that's considered like mamash, like nagata bamet. You understand the law? But let's say it wasn't that type of situation. You put like a wall, like let's say you have like a slab, a marble slab, and you put the marble slab on the four sides of the, I think it's called cadaver, right? Is that the correct English word? Cadaver is the body of the...
Yes.
Yes, okay. So you put, let's say you have the cadaver, and you put a marble slab on each one of the four sides. Okay. And then you put on top of that, you put another marble slab, like making a roof. Now, unlike the first case, which I described, where you filled up the soil, and therefore this has the din of the kever, so it's all sealed, meaning it's all filled up. In this second case, it's empty space, right? So this has the status of the golal, and the side, the roof has the status of the golal, and the side walls are called the dofek, okay? And these are mitamein b'maga u'oil kakever, but this is midivrei sofrim, not mideoraita. Okay, I just want you to understand a little. Again, it's not germane to our sugya, but I just want to add a little additional information. All right. All right. So now, I believe that I said what I wanted to say on the matter before we go to the final part of the sugya. All right. All right. So here's what I want to do now. I'm going to go to the final part of the sugya. We'll read it. We'll explain it. And then I want to, and by the way, I did not listen. I did not review my father's notes on this. Meaning, I had my father's notes on Masechet Ketuvot. I did not review it. I did not have the opportunity. Normally, we do the class on Tuesday, and I had that opportunity. But I do want to, go forward. And then in the next classes, I'll look at my father's notes, and we'll do more, and go more b'iyun. But for now, I want to finish the sugya. And then after I finish the sugya, I want to give you the sugya from a historical perspective, because there's a lot of chachamim here. There's surah, there's fum bedita. It's a little confusing. Where was the sugya? From which yeshiva? And I want to deal with that, of course. So we'll deal with that after we finish just going through this fifth and final major part of the sugya. Okay? So let's begin. Give me a moment just to open my notes. All right. All right. So this fifth and final part is Daf Daled Amud Bet, 2 lines from the bottom of the page. Amar Mor. You have it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now we're starting. So now this is a new kind of limud. This is the fifth and final major part of the sugya, where we're going to be giving an explanation for why no nisu'im on Friday, on Erev Shabbat, why no nisu'im on Mosei Shabbat, and then we're going to go back and give an additional explanation for why no nisu'im Erev Shabbat. Okay, so that's going to be this fifth and final part. I still have to map it out. I did not do a good job in my notes, mechila for that, but hopefully we'll get it done. All right, so let's do it. Amar Mo Ishaq Tikra.
אמר מו בין כך ובין כך לא יבעול לא בערב שבת ולא במוצאי שבת.
So again, they were in the yeshiva, and just so you understand, the yeshiva was not open to the public. It was a very formal proceeding. Right? The same way, I don't know, can you imagine the Supreme Court is sitting, I mean, I don't know what happens in America, but this is like the Supreme Court of the Jewish people. They have the Hachamim, and they had, in the yeshiva, they had a Tanna, the Tannaim. I'm not talking about the Tannaim as in the generation of the Tannaim, but the people who were experts in studying things Be'al Peh. So Amar Mor is a very respectful way. Sir, you stated as follows. Who is the sir, Shalomo? The Tanna. So meaning the Tanna who recited the Beraita, he stated the following. So this is going back to the original Beraita number 2, which was in Daf Gimel, Amud Bet, right? And in that Beraita, we said, and now going all the way to Daf Daled, Amud Aleph. No, but that was not it. Mechila. No. Right. Okay. No, I'm sorry. Mechila. It's the third. It's Beraita Gimel in Daf Daled Amud Aleph. Beraita Gimel. The Tanya Kevateh de Rav Chisda. That Beraita said, Lo Yib'ol, Lo Be'erev Shabbat, Ve'lo Be'mosei Shabbat. So the husband and wife got married, and the Beraita is saying that it's forbidden to be with her for the first time Friday night, and similarly it's forbidden to be with her Lo Be'mosei Shabbat. Why? What's the issue? Okay? So Amar Mo. So when the yeshiva wants to analyze a topic, it first confirms with the Tanna. This is what you said. Now, if it isn't what he said, the Tanna will say, excuse me, that's not what I said. You misheard me, right? But so again, Amar Mo, sir. Okay, so Amar Mo, Benkach Ubenkach, you quoted the Beraita, and you stated, Lo Yib'ol, Lo Be'erev Shabbat, Ve'lo Be'mosei Shabbat. That the husband cannot be for the first time either Friday night or Saturday night. Okay. Continue.
איש למה בערב שבת שום חבורה.
Okay. The question of Erev Shabbat, we can understand that law. That's Mishum Habura. Now let me explain to you the law of Habura. Okay. So one of the Lametet Melachot is Dash. Okay. Dash is after you would harvest the wheat, you would put the wheat on this like circular floor outdoors somewhere, and then the animal, let's say an ox, would start walking, and it'd have like a dough roller in back of it, and as it's walking, the dough roller is kind of rolling over the wheat and crushing the wheat, thus separating the seed of the wheat, or the kernel of the wheat, from the rest of the parts of the wheat, right? Because he crushed it. That's called disha. So dash is one of the melachot on Shabbat. Now, what they would do is after that there would be zoreh laruach. They would take a big pitchfork and throw it up into the air, and then the wind would come and it would blow away the chaff, which is like spiny and thorny, but then the seed, which is a little heavier, would fall down. And we say in the first chapter of Tehillim, Kamos asher tedefenu ruach. So Kamos asher tedefenu ruach, because the Ikah, the Reshaim are like the Mos. Because Kamos asher tedefenu ruach, the wind blows the chaff, and the chaff has no internal sense of direction. It just does whatever the wind tells it to do, right? So a great example is Elon Musk. Before he was doing electric vehicles, he was similar to the Pope, maybe a little greater. Then he was in favor of Donald Trump. He became Adolf Hitler. Now he's against Donald Trump. He's, Hazarnu Banu. The guy's really a Sadiq. I mean, this guy is a special Sadiq. In a few weeks, they're going to make up again. This time he's going to be Genghis Khan. So you see the Reshaim, they have no internal sense of direction. Whatever the wind is, whatever the greater wind, the direction that the wind blows is the direction they go in. So again, it's almost Pavlovian. They don't have the ability to make a judgment. They don't have the ability to understand what they're talking about. They just, it is so because the overlords have stated it to be so. So that's the most asher tedefenu ruach.
The whole world is the slime of the snake. Whatever the Elohim say, today that's true. Tomorrow the Elohim could say the opposite, and that's always been true. We've always been at war with East Asia. We've never been at war with Oceania. And tomorrow, we've always been at war with Oceania. We've never been at war with East Asia. I'm referring, of course, to George Orwell.
Yes, that's great. Not just that. Now it comes out that surprisingly and shockingly, it looks like Biden might not have been so healthy as it turns out. But what's amazing about that is not the admission, but anybody who said that Biden wasn't healthy back then is still a Rasha. It doesn't matter that we change our mind. We change our mind because the overlords told us to change our mind. It doesn't make us bad for saying he was actually healthy. Right? There's no sense of, I'm a little embarrassed. Listen, I gotta admit the truth. At the end it turns out that I was wrong. I don't know. I guess I misjudged. There's none of that. It's just you just follow the direction of the wind. This is the way the wind is blowing, and the reality is irrelevant. So this that you used to say that he was healthy, it doesn't matter. It's an irrelevancy, and that's what fascinates me about what's happening in America. It's like complete. But I'm worried about anti-Semitism in this country. I think it's becoming a thing. And I see it also among some Republicans like Tucker Carlson and others. They're obsessed with Israel. But I have to say, if God forbid the Democrats ever got power again, it'll be like Hamas will be rioting in the streets. Who knows what's going to happen? I mean, they're doing it now. Can you imagine if they had the Democrats in power? That would be it. It would be like, Nafla lo tosif kum, right? All right. Nafla lo tosif kum be'ulat America, right? Okay. But yeah. Anyway, so there's the idea of the most asher tedefenu ruach. Now another thing my father explained to me, that when they would do the zeriyah, they would always do it at night. Now the reason they would do it at night is because you're throwing it up in the air and the wind blows it, and it can hurt people. There's people walking on the road, so they get stung, by the thorns. So he said they would do it at night to prevent that. They would do it under a full moon, right? Geresh Yerachim. That's right. So anyway, so that's the Zeriyah, but we're talking about Disha. So Disha is one of the Lametet Melachot on Shabbat. Now, a Tolada of Disha is Mefarek. So for example, if you have a cow and you want to milk the cow on Shabbat, you're just going to separate the milk from I think it's called an udder. So you could separate the milk from the udder of the cow. That's called Mefarek, similar to Disha, right? Where you have the seed that you want to eat, and you're separating it from the stem or the thorns. So here you separate the milk from the udder, right? That's called mefarek. So oseh habura on Shabbat, if somebody punches somebody else and it causes like a black and blue mark, like an internal wound or blood comes out, that's Isur Deoraita. So that would be Asur Mishum Mefarek. So Oseh Habura on Shabbat is Asur, right? So that's why Friday night he can't be with his wife for the first time, because if she's a Betula and she's going to have Dam Betulim, it's going to be doing a Habura on Shabbat, which is Asur, Isur Deoraita. You understand the thing? So on the question of, again, on the question of Bishlama ve'erev Shabbat, the question of Erev Shabbat, Mishum Habura, that's very clear why it's Asur. Continue. Ella
במוצאי שבת.
Amayla. What's Isham Motzei Shabbat? Why should there even be an Isham Motzei Shabbat? You tell me you can't be with the wife. There's only Isur Shabbat. I mean, right? So what's the issue? Okay, understand?
Yeah. אמר רבי זה משום חשבונות.
Mishum Heshbonot. Okay. Okay, so you're already saying so. So that means that you're opening up the possibility of having a wedding on Mosai Shabbat. Okay. So you have the wedding on Mosai Shabbat, and now what's going to happen is that on Shabbat they're going to be discussing, okay, wait, hold on, I'm going to have 100 people. Wait, you coming? Oh my, you're also coming to the wedding? Oh, another 5 people coming to the wedding. Let me just think about this. That's $50 a meal, $250. Okay, let me speak to the caterer. Whoever the caterer is, I don't know, Seura, Zavi, whatever. Let's have the caterer. All right, so now you have these discussions. This is financial discussions. So Divrachol v'Shabbat Asurim. By the way, one of the great things of my father, and we've of course had many Shabbat meals with him. Divrachol v'Shabbat Asurim. That's like if there was a statement that we heard from him, stop discussing things, Divrachol v'Shabbat Asurim. That was a very big thing by him. No discussing anything related to tomorrow, Divrachol v'Shabbat Asurim. So Heshbonot is an example of Divrachol v'Shabbat Asurim. Give me a moment.